These are three of the most powerful technology companies on the planet: Microsoft, Google, and Meta. And every single one of them has watched their emissions surge after promising to go carbon neutral. Microsoft's emissions are up 29% since 2020. Google's are up 48% since 2019. And Meta is now building 10 natural gas power plants in rural Louisiana to power a single AI data center campus. The reason is the same across all of them. Every time someone sends a prompt to ChatGPT, Gemini, or another large language model, that request has to be processed inside a hyperscale AI data center running on electricity. And globally, a huge chunk of that electricity still comes from fossil fuels, roughly 30% from coal and 26% from natural gas. This video is about where that electricity actually comes from, how much energy AI is consuming, and why the gap between what tech companies promise and what they're actually doing has never been wider. Let's start with the numbers, because the one AI prompt barely uses energy argument completely falls apart once you look at scale. In June 2025, Sam Altman said the average ChatGPT query uses around 0.34 watt-hours of electricity. He compared it to an oven running for 1 second. Sounds harmless, right? But by mid-2025, ChatGPT was processing around 2.5 billion prompts every single day. Multiply that by 0.34 watt-hours, and you get roughly 850 megawatt-hours of electricity per day from ChatGPT alone. That adds up to more than 310 gigawatt-hours per year from a single product. And by early 2026, ChatGPT had already reached around 900 million weekly active users. Now, zoom out to the entire data center industry. According to the International Energy Agency, global data centers used around 415 terawatt-hours of electricity in 2024. By 2025, that number climbed to 485 terawatt-hours. By 2030, it could hit 945 terawatt-hours, nearly 3% of all electricity consumed on Earth. AI-specific data center demand alone grew 50% in just 1 year. Goldman Sachs estimated AI could drive a 165% increase in global data center power demand by 2030 compared to 2023. This isn't really about whether your individual prompts are boiling the oceans. It's about what happens when billions of prompts get processed every day inside infrastructure expanding faster than clean energy can keep up with. AI data centers are also fundamentally different from traditional cloud computing centers. Large language models run on specialized GPUs, mostly built by NVIDIA, stacked into massive server racks inside warehouse-sized facilities. The latest NVIDIA Blackwell architecture has pushed power density even higher than previous generations. The International Energy Agency found that AI server rack power density increased 11-fold since 2020 and could increase another 4-fold by 2027. One server rack may soon consume the same peak power load as around 65 households. Many of these hyperscale facilities now struggle with power usage effectiveness, or PUE, as cooling systems work overtime to handle the heat. And there are two separate energy costs with AI. First is training, building the model itself. Training GPT-3 required over 1,200 megawatt-hours of electricity and emitted hundreds of metric tons of CO2. Another study found that training a large NLP model with extensive tuning could emit around 626,000 pounds of CO2, roughly 5 times the lifetime emissions of an average American car. The second cost is inference, actually answering user prompts. One prompt may use far less energy than training, but at billions of requests per day, inference eventually catches up. Researchers estimate it can take between 200 and 500 million inferences to equal the energy cost of training a large model. At current scale, that threshold can be reached surprisingly fast. Then there's water usage. Data centers use massive amounts of water for cooling systems. Researchers at UC Riverside estimated that generating a 100-word email with GPT-4 consumes around 519 milliliters of water, about one water bottle. Microsoft's water consumption has jumped 87% since 2020. Google's water consumption rose around 88% since 2019. Now, here's where the AI is burning coal argument needs some precision. Globally, around 30% of data center electricity still comes from coal, while 26% comes from natural gas. Renewables provide roughly 27%, and nuclear covers about 15%. In the United States specifically, natural gas is actually the dominant fuel source powering data center growth. So technically, your prompts are probably burning more gas than coal. And this is exactly why nuclear suddenly became such a huge story in AI. In September 2024, Microsoft partnered with Constellation Energy to restart Unit 1 of 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, connecting to the PJM interconnection grid. Google signed agreements with Kairos Power for advanced nuclear reactors. Amazon invested heavily into X-energy and small modular nuclear reactor projects. These are real clean energy commitments. The problem is timing. Most of these nuclear projects won't produce meaningful electricity until after 2030. Until then, much of the AI boom is being powered by fossil fuels. And this is where the sustainability numbers start getting uncomfortable, especially when companies report their Scope 2 emissions. Microsoft promised in 2020 to become carbon negative by 2030. Since then, its emissions have risen 29%. Its electricity consumption nearly tripled from 10.8 million megawatt-hours to almost 30 million by 2024. Microsoft's own sustainability chief admitted the company's climate goals now feel even further away than when they started. Google's emissions are up 48% since 2019, while water usage climbed almost 88%. The company openly admitted that integrating more AI into its products makes reducing emissions significantly harder. Google even quietly dropped its operational carbon neutrality claim in 2023. Then there's Meta. In Louisiana, Meta announced a massive AI campus called Hyperion. By 2026, Meta and Entergy expanded the plan into 10 gas-fired power plants totaling around 7.5 gigawatts of capacity, plus hundreds of miles of transmission infrastructure. This behind-the-meter generation approach means Meta essentially built its own power grid. 7 of those gas plants were fast-tracked for approval in 2026. 7 new gas plants for one AI campus. And this isn't only changing emissions, it's reshaping entire regions. Northern Virginia became the densest data center cluster on Earth, handling an estimated 70% of global internet traffic. Ireland's data centers already consume over 20% of the country's electricity. Texas is now becoming another major AI hotspot through the Stargate project, a massive $500 billion AI infrastructure initiative tied to OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. Communities are also starting to push back. Residents in Virginia have protested large data center developments. Analysts estimate Louisiana ratepayers could face tens of billions in additional electricity system costs tied to fossil fuel-powered AI expansion. Now, to be fair, there is a real counter-argument here. AI systems are becoming dramatically more energy efficient every year. Some studies suggest AI could even help reduce global emissions through grid optimization, scientific discovery, and energy management. And researchers argue AI's total share of global electricity usage may still remain manageable by 2030. But there's a major problem with that argument, and economists call it Jevons's paradox. As technology becomes more efficient, people use more of it. Making AI cheaper and more efficient doesn't necessarily reduce total energy usage. It often expands demand even faster. The International Energy Agency's own numbers show that while per-task efficiency improved massively, total data center electricity demand still surged 17% in 2025. There's also a transparency problem. OpenAI has never fully disclosed the training energy or emissions behind GPT-4. Microsoft, Google, and Meta all use accounting systems that can understate their true fossil fuel exposure. Even Sam Altman's 0.34 watt-hour figure hasn't been independently verified and may not include total data center overhead like cooling systems. And according to the IEA, generating AI video can consume roughly 25 times more energy than a basic text query. So here's where we actually are. ChatGPT launched in late 2022. In less than 4 years, it exploded to around 900 million weekly users. Data centers powering AI consumed around 485 terawatt-hours of electricity in 2025, and that number could nearly double by 2030. Fossil fuels are still expected to meet over 40% of that additional demand. The nuclear and renewable deals are real, but most won't arrive fast enough to cover the current AI boom. The efficiency is improving, the scale is growing even faster, and despite all the climate pledges, emissions are still going up.